Yes, we're back with another episode of Big Sports Podcast with your host Gordon.
Yes, and Tomi and Gordon.
Alright, brilliant. For today's episode, we wanted to talk about the importance of coaching. And we got some amazing news to share. Tommy's officially a TEDx public speaking coach. How does it feel?
Yeah, it feels amazing. It's an honor, it's a privilege to finally say that. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, man.
And the amount that you've been able to achieve in a short space of time is absolutely amazing. And how was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was amazing, giving people the confidence, the tools they need to step on that stage and share their message with the world. Something I'm really proud of the people I worked with in such a short space of time, just a few weeks of working closely together, seeing them apply everything. We talked about the tips, the strategies. Yeah, it was amazing.
And for someone that's never received professional training before, how does that coaching work? Is it one-to-one? Is it a group setting?
So specifically for the TEDx speakers, it was one-to-one training online, just going through the importance of body language, projection, your tone, the art of storytelling. So it was mainly one-to-one sessions specifically for the TEDx speaking.
And with that coaching, what were some of the common things you identified across the different speakers that you thought these are areas that you can improve on?
I'd say there were a few. People were mainly worried about public perception.
Let's talk about that.
How they would be perceived. And one thing I made very clear to the students is that they must see public speaking as a conversation rather than a performance.
Yes.
So getting people to understand the message rather than trying to win them over by being someone they're not, because it's not about people liking you.
And I think that's really important, because if you see public speaking as a performance, then you'll suffer from performance anxiety. But once you start to view it as a conversation, your relationship with interacting with the audience completely changes, because it's all about them understanding you. And once you highlighted this to them, was there a shift in their perspective?
Yeah, they immediately felt a new sense of belief and confidence to show up authentically as themselves. And I think that's the really most important thing, being you genuinely, because trying to be someone you're not can be very exhausting, and eventually people will see the cracks. It doesn't last. But showing up authentically as yourself, that authenticity leads to longevity and allows one to really show up in a way that they haven't before.
And once you delivered that coaching, what was the difference you saw on that day?
Yeah, so like I said, initially before the coaching, when I had those initial conversations, people were worried about the delivery and the perception. But then fast forward a couple of weeks and actually being there live in person, the composure, the confidence, it was just flowing.
You must have felt like a proud dad with your camera out just recording that.
Yeah, no, literally just getting the content, giving them those last minute words of affirmation before they went on stage as well, because I made sure to get there nice and early before they delivered the speeches, just reassuring them that it'll be all right, and that the anticipation is always worse than the reality. Exactly. It's not going to be as bad as you think. So yeah,
you took the words right out of my mouth, because in that anticipation, you're behind the scenes, your heart is racing, you're thinking the worst case scenario. But once you go out there and start speaking, it's not as bad as you think. But due to the nerves and that fear of public perception, a lot of people don't go on the stage in the first place. And I think that's something that's quite disheartening, because they think, I can't possibly speak with conviction, but you can. You just need to put yourself in that position first.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's really crucial for people to understand. Yeah. And for you, what was the big difference you saw between speakers that received coaching from yourself, amazing coach by the way, and those that literally just went up there and they might have just practiced in the comfort of their home by themselves? Maybe they got feedback from their partner, their friend, but they didn't receive the professional training. Was there a difference in the execution?
Yeah, I believe the big difference was in their ability to manage the nerves. We all get nervous, whether that's a professional speaker with 20 years of experience or someone who's just getting started and delivering their first ever speech, we all get nervous. But the difference between those who are coached and those who weren't, you could see the use of filler words at times, the nervousness, trying to remember exactly what they had written in the script and trying to catch up in their minds, and the overthinking. It led to certain situations that could have been avoided if they took maybe a more proactive approach. But a lot of people don't realize that this coaching is actually available, but we are here to fill that gap and really bridge the gap between where people are currently at and where they can get to as speakers.
You touched on 2 points. One, the importance of managing your nerves, and two, the mistake a lot of people make is that they try to memorize the entire speech. Now, focusing on the first point, managing the nerves, how did you address this for your coaching?
Yeah, so I managed to get this message across nice and early that you can never completely get rid of the nerves. It's about managing them. So as Fred would always say, it's like cold weather. You know, you prepare for it, wear your jacket and whatnot. So I think the most important thing was the practice, because there's no magic pill to become confident and manage these nerves. Is through practicing. So the only way to improve as a speaker is through practice. But I made sure that we created a scenario and an atmosphere that would be very much similar to delivering on the day. That's the difference. So during these sessions, even though it was virtual, still getting them to stand up, deliver it with the slides, and to take it as serious as if they're actually in the moment. So recreating or simulating the real scenario.
Yeah, you're putting them under the same sort of pressure they'll be under on that big day. The risk is a lot less, but in those moments you help them to understand that the nerves will be present, but you can still do a good job anyways. One thing I always say is that the spike in anxiety and anxiousness lasts up to 60 seconds. The opening moments of any interaction, speech, presentation, pitch will be difficult. Your heart will be racing. But once you're able to overcome that hurdle, take your time, before you know it, building that momentum, it does get easier for you. And that's something that is crucial. The second thing you touched on, and this is a big mistake, is trying to memorize the entire speech. Why do you see that as a bad thing?
Firstly, having a script is extremely important. Planning, preparing, having a clear plan as to what you want to deliver. Extremely important. The problem is, though, when one tries to remember every single word, every letter, every single sentence, if they forget and are trying to remember, it leads to them showing the audience that they've forgotten and left something out.
Yes.
And that's the issue. Because one needs to be flexible and adaptable enough to still flow. So it is clear sometimes that if you're trying to remember and you pause and you think and you look into the sky, looking at the floor, not able to maintain that eye contact because your mind is wandering in the brain, thinking of all the thoughts, it is distracting for yourself and the audience. You're doing yourself a disservice and your listeners as well. So
yeah, and the thing that we need to realize is that the audience are listening to you for the first time. They have no idea what you're about to say. And when you put a spotlight on your mistakes, as you mentioned, looking up, looking down, complete silence for a period of 15 to 20 seconds, now it's clear to them that you've made a mistake. But if you've already accepted beforehand that, you know what, under that pressure, I may take things in a different direction, if your mind does go blank, you just pivot. Because you understand what the key message is that you're delivering. We just put too much pressure on ourselves to make it go perfectly. That won't happen. As humans, we make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And that's something we have to accept.
Yeah, perfection doesn't exist. And one thing I always made clear is that in the presentation, use a few pictures, maybe just a short quote, a nice saying that's easy for people to read off the screen, and something that just prompts you to then flow, remembering the key points. Because in a speech, there will be certain bits that have to be mentioned, of course, But other bits you can afford to forget as long as you remain calm, composed, relax, hit the key points, have your prompts, and then you'll be all right.
And I think this highlights the importance of getting feedback, because it helps you to understand your opportunities for improvement rather than making the same mistakes over and over again. By getting coaching from Tomi or any other coach in this area, you can understand, okay, these are the things I'm doing incorrectly, how to actually change that. And that allows me to be much better on that day when I want to perform.
Absolutely, because there's always room for improvement, right? If we don't seek improvement, it leads to complacency, and we're going to end up back where we first started. Like we always say, the confidence gym, believe in greatness, that's what we're about. You need to constantly seek that improvement daily in order to improve, or else it's not going to lead to any betterment in your speaking and your delivery. So it's really important to seek that improvement.
Yeah, one thing we always say, we try to make direct comparisons with the gym. I'm sure most listeners are familiar with. This is an infinite game. We have to keep on trying to improve, to get practice, to learn how to get better in any area, especially in our communication skills, because I always share this example. I remember, was it March or April? I traveled to Malta. I was only there for 5 days. In that time, I didn't do any public speaking engagements, workshops, meetings, nothing of the like. I was just relaxing. Once I returned after those 5 days, I had a workshop a week later, and it went terribly. And that was due to the fact that I didn't practice in that time. I've been a public speaking coach for the last 3 to 4 years. And if I need to consistently practice for anyone else, this highlights the importance of doing that as well. Because sometimes we think that once we get to a certain point, I don't need it anymore. But like going to the gym, even once you reach your optimal fitness, if you want to maintain that level, you need to keep on going. And with communication and your public speaking, your confidence, it is no different. If you want to stay confident, you need to always strive to step outside of your comfort zone, to do the things that seem scary initially. And that's how you stay at that level.
Absolutely. And like you said, with the comfort zone, it keeps moving. You step out of your comfort zone, then that becomes comfortable.
Yes.
And then you progress again. You lift a certain weight, 8 kg dumbbells, then 10. Yes. 10 gets easy, then 12. So it's a constant and never-ending process, you know. You can improve every day.
Exactly. And we spoke about this on the way here. You could go to the gym, let's say 3 days a week, but doing the exact same things. After 6 months, your body looks exactly the same. Clearly, there's something you're not doing correctly. And with your communication skills, it is no different. You could go to, for example, Toastmasters, and I'm not against them at all, just a disclaimer, every single week, but yet you don't feel any more confident in terms of your speaking abilities is exactly the same. And that's due to the lack of feedback and professional coaching, which is crucial, because as coaches, we push you outside of your comfort zone. If you struggle to speak for a period of 1 minute without using filler words, looking down, you're over dependent on your notes, we will push you past that barrier. And then before you know it, you can speak for 5 minutes and have that comfortability that I may not necessarily have it all planned out end to end, but I know what that key message is and I'll deliver it. Coaching is crucial to help you get to that level that you want to get to.
Absolutely, absolutely. And even as coaches, we give each other feedback.
Yep.
And nobody is in a position where they should ever think, I don't need to learn anymore. We're all students of life and students of the game. Yeah, so Gordon gives me feedback, I will too, and Fred, and that's what it's about. Just keep on pushing. So even as coaches, as Gordon touched on, you went on holiday, you felt nervous. People would assume that because you're a coach, you don't get nerves. Because you do this for a living, you don't get nervous. But we do, but we learn how to manage it. We keep improving and practicing. So to anyone out there thinking about getting a coach or just improving your speaking, something to really go for. Absolutely.
And even the point that you mentioned, when we deliver workshops and we are coaching, people have this assumption that we have been confident our whole life. But little do you know, just touch on my own personal story, I was an introvert growing up. And it's only by coming out of my comfort zone, as you mentioned, I was able to grow in this area. And that is why it's important for me as a coach to be as transparent as possible. Something I always say, and I don't shy away from it, in the opening moments of any speech, presentation, workshop, I am nervous, but that doesn't stop me from doing a good job. And for participants, when they hear that, they realize, wow, I'm not alone. I shouldn't see my nerves as a bad thing, because the issue is we weaponize it. And with our coaching, we help you to understand I should embrace it. Embrace it, and I will improve over time.
100%. I like what you said there, because that vulnerability you touched on increases the level of relatability.
Yes.
And people realize that, wow, I'm not alone in this. Oh, you feel like that too.
Yes.
I thought it was just me. No, we're all in this together. So
that's beautiful what you said there, that relatability piece, because you give your audience more of a reason to listen to you, because they realize, okay, we're not that different. Although externally we think, okay, there's complete differences between us if it's our race, gender, age. But then once I actually hear you speak, I can resonate with what you're talking about. And as speakers, and it goes back to the point we made earlier, rather than seeing it as a performance, it is a conversation. And my question to you is, when you make that shift, what is the difference in the way that you present yourself?
It's a great question. It allows you to focus on, like I said earlier, showing up authentically as yourself, because you're not worried about how people will perceive you. It allows you to genuinely connect with the audience, I believe. Because sometimes people feel the need to perform and conform to what they think people should see them as.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So I think it's really
like you're
important.
putting on a imaginary mask because you just want to be accepted by others.
Yeah.
And then that creates a barrier between you and the audience, because you're just seeking their approval, their acceptance. You will never feel comfortable on the stage if you approach speaking like that. The most important thing is for them to understand what you're talking about, your message. And with coaching, it helps you to realize, you know what? I may have my weaknesses, but that's perfectly fine. I'm just going to show up as my true, authentic self. It seems scary. Most of us don't want to do it. As humans, we are built for connection. People liking us is important, but with speaking, what's more important is the understanding at the end of the day. Because one thing I mention every single time I do coaching, and I've realized through my own experiences, is that for the majority of us, our confidence is dependent on the external context. For example, if you're speaking to one of your friends or your cousin Mofe, you can be yourself, have a conversation. Even if you make mistakes, you don't care. You're just going to share whatever comes to your mind. You're being very instinctive. But then when the context changes and now you're speaking on a TEDx stage to a potential investor, a client, at a school in front of 50 students, it's a lot more nerve-wracking because you think the stakes are higher. And the same way you would communicate in front of Mofe would be completely different, and you can't put your best foot forward. I believe it's very important that you focus on the things you can control, because the reality is, if I'm speaking and there's someone in the audience with a straight face, they're bored, they're on their phone, tapping their friend, having a conversation, there's only so much I can do about that. But the two things I can control, and I always touch on this, is the message and my nerves. With the message, what I'm delivering, is it effective? What can I improve? And to your point, rather than trying to memorize the entire speech, in that moment, if my mind goes blank, okay, thinking about the overall message, what can I now replace that with, which will still make my overall point relevant? And then with the nerves, because we've touched on the fact and we coach this all of the time, being anxious won't stop me from doing a good job. Let me accept this. Let me take my time. And then things get easier. But if you constantly think about perfection, if you trip over your words in the opening moment, that will put you in a sense of panic. But I'm sure you saw with the speakers you coach, they were composed throughout.
Yeah.
They were relaxed because they knew this is an important moment for me. I've got this amazing coaching. I know exactly what I need to do.
Yeah. It was amazing to see, like I said, in a short space of time, just a couple of weeks leading up to the event, the progress they made. And it just goes to show that when the right principles and strategies are being applied, you can make lasting changes very quickly, as opposed to doing the wrong things for a long period of time or doing no coaching or preparation at all. So I think it's really important, and I got really great feedback from the speakers that I coached, and other speakers who are interested in improving also very much interested, because seeing those people on stage deliver the way they did was very encouraging, and they would like to take the same steps.
That's brilliant. And something that's come to my mind, and this is inspired from the book called Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah, great
You
book.
don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And with the system is how you will get there, the steps that need to be taken. I'm sure for most listeners, being on a TEDx stage, that sounds amazing. But once you get up there, what are you actually going to do? Will you be able to manage the nerves? Will you be able to deliver your message effectively? And this is why coaching and putting yourself in the right environment is crucial, because you begin to understand what is needed to reach those goals you've set yourself.
Absolutely. And one quote I'll add, I really love what you touched on by James Clear. Another thing is, when preparation meets opportunity, success is inevitable. So don't wait for a big opportunity to come and then rush to get the coaching or training you need. Stay ready, stay sharp now. So when it does come, it's not anything that you haven't already done. You've already done it a million times. Think about Kobe Bryant. When he stepped on the court, he had already practiced under those conditions a million times. And there's many other greats in many other fields I could mention. But just think about that.
The consistency reduces the doubt in your mind. And you need to practice when nobody's looking. Kobe Bryant, Beyonce, Usain Bolt. The amount of work they've put in behind the scenes, when you see them on the big stage, under the spotlight, they're able to perform and they're relaxed. And that's because they put in the work. And for anyone that's listening, and even for us, we constantly need to practice. And when you start to treat communication as a skill, you appreciate this a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really love that. It's something that may appear to come more naturally to others, but the truth is, when you hone the skill, you work on it day in, day out, or as often as you possibly can, there's no limit to the levels you can reach. And what may appear as your ceiling today can become your floor tomorrow when you keep pushing.
I like that. Where do you get that one from?
Yeah, just one of them ones, man. It's in the pipeline. We got a lot more. Stay tuned for a lot more if you want to hear more of those gems.
All right, babe. As we wrap up this episode, what are some of the key takeaways people can take from this episode?
I would say, when it comes to public speaking, definitely see it more as a conversation than a performance. You're not acting. If you're acting, that's a completely different thing. Drama, theatre. Public speaking, be yourself, show up, be authentically you. Prepare. Practice under difficult, similar conditions to the real day as much as possible. So when it comes, it doesn't seem like anything new. Focus on progress rather than perfection. Don't try to get the script perfectly. Don't try to remember every single word. Make your presentation very authentic and real, still hammering home the key points. And those will be the main takeaways.
And what I'll just add to that, think more about your systems, what you're going to do to get to the goals you've set yourself. I see the systems as a combination of two things, the environment and the inputs. With the speakers that spoke at the TEDx event, the environment they placed themselves in was under the coaching of Tomi. And in the inputs, he's providing them with the feedback. If you think about any area of your life that you want to improve, if it's in terms of your financial situation, your career, your communication skills, think about the systems that you currently have, the steps that you're taking every single day. That's something that's crucial. And also understand that this is an infinite game and you constantly need to strive to be the best version of yourself. You can never be complacent. You could always go back to where you was before, but if you acknowledge that, you know what, I need to always practice, you'll stay at the highest level and you'll be better than the majority of people around you. And the last thing I'll just highlight is being nervous is perfectly fine. Rather than seeing it as a sign of trouble, see it as an indication that you're doing something important. And despite how you're feeling internally, you can come across confident to your audience.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. I think this wraps up another episode of Big Thoughts Podcast with your host, Gordon.
Yes, Tomi and Gordon.
AKA the TEDx public speaking coach.
Yeah.
And we'll be back with another episode. Thank you.